So, hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 187 of Level Up. 60 minutes of live Q&A, of course, where your questions really do drive the show. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can, of course, find out much more about what we do by subscribing to our channel. So do please give this video a like if you find it of value and click on that little subscribe icon to find out much more. Ella is over in the social chat today, so do please let her know both your name and the city from where you are joining. She's going to post a link for you to be able to vote up the questions that you would most like the panel to answer, and of course for you to be able to add your own. If your question is selected, of course, then your name's going to appear in the credits at the end of the show. So it's very much worthwhile doing. Get your questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Collaboration improves the ways that teams work and solve problems together, encouraging innovation, improving efficiency, and ultimately outcomes. By listening to and learning from each other, we can really help reach our goals. But how do we bring about a culture of collaboration in our teams and organizations? To help us figure this out today are a really great panel. So let's jump over and meet them. Laurie Bowman rejoins us today. He is, of course, head of the project portfolio planning and control at Synchrony projects. He has an engineering background and spent time in the construction industry and so on. Really great to have you back on Level Up, Laurie. Great to see you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Very good to be back here, and welcome, fellow panelists.
Thank you very much indeed. Darrel rejoins us. Darrel Popowich is the Chief Visionary Officer and COO over at the BRM Institute, where he works tirelessly to deliver for every member around the world. Darrel is, of course, a regular contributor here on Level Up as well and brings his thought leadership and experience to our panel today. Welcome back to Level Up, Darrel. Great to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. And fellow panelists, it's going to be a good show today. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Robert Snyder completes our on-screen team today. He's the founder and the president at Innovation Elegance, where in his career, he has spanned both the technical kind of project and change, sales enablement type roles, full kind of cross-functional experience, really. Always looking to build positive outcomes. He inspires others with his quiet confidence and situational leadership. So welcome back to Level Up, Robert. Really great to see you today.
Thank you, Nick. And likewise with the panelists, looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Our question master, where would we be without the question master for today, is Charlotte Miller. She's joining us from the Thames Valley here in the UK. So welcome back to the panel, Charlotte. A little early start for you today.
Yes, it is, but it's great to be here, Nick. Hello to our panelists and hello to our viewers.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much indeed. I can see lots of people joining us online from around the world. We'll come to all of you in a short while. But let's get this show on the road, so to speak. So, Charlotte, may we have our first question to the panel?
You certainly can, Nick. We've got a question from Robert, one of our panelists. Robert would like to know, why is collaboration so difficult?
It's a really good one. It's like right at the heart of the matter, isn't it? If we're naturally collaborative, we're naturally social animals, aren't we, as human beings? We're naturally wanting, to kind of work together and communicate together. And so why is it so tricky? Laurie, why don't you start us off and then we'll go to Darrel?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Robert. So I guess one of the reasons is maybe we get uncomfortable. When you're collaborating with somebody else, they might have different ideas, different views, different perspectives, which means you have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. So I would say that that discomfort with dealing with someone with different ideas, different thoughts, is one reason why we do find it a little bit difficult.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, we're trying to add some value ourselves, and yet at the same time, we're supposed to be listening and responding to other people. I wonder if we get that kind of balance quite right. There is often discomfort, isn't there? I agree with you, Laurie. You can see it in the room. When you read the room, you can really kind of see that actually, happening. So thank you very much for starting us off in our thinking. Let's go to Darrel next. What are your thoughts on this? Why is it such a tricky thing to get right?
Well, first and foremost, you're dealing with people. People are egos and icons. And you get those egos and icons in a room, and you start having the natural thing that people do is, what is the pecking order? Who is more important? How do I showcase myself above others? I do not want to look bad. And so you start getting the hesitancy, you start getting some of the domineering individuals in the room. And to top it off, after all that is said and done, collaboration has this air of, we need consensus and we need to get to agreement. But you get those egos and icons with bonuses and goals and targets to maintain and keep their job and their position. And now you actually start to get the conflict in the room, and people stop listening. Just as Laurie was saying, is the active listening part. You have individuals that are waiting for their opportunity to tell and share their opinion and try to force their direction on the rest of the room. And so as soon as you have all of those things starting to enter the room or the group, then collaboration becomes difficult because people are trying to figure out how they get their way and maybe make it look like others get their way, but really it's, how do I manipulate or influence this room to really achieve what I'm looking for? And that really is that start of why so many leaders are looking for, how do we create real collaboration and break down that individual perspective or the group think over on one side and the adversarial component in a nice, friendly way. And so collaboration, real true collaboration, gets lost in goals, targets, individuals, for sure.
I think you've really touched on something which is very important, isn't it? The ego that is within us, if you like, needs to be managed, and some people are better at that than others. Some folks are able to moderate, their ego in order to be able to truly add value. There's, how many times have we been in a collaboration session where somebody comes in with the voice of common sense? You kind of think, oh, why didn't I say that? It was an absolutely brilliant, point to make. But it's often not the most, not the most revelatory comment, but it's the most common sense comment. And there's somebody who's really managing that so that they're making a relevant contribution at the right time. So leaving your ego at the door, perhaps, if I paraphrase that a little bit, or at least managing your ego a little bit, might be a really good bit of advice for all of us, I think, especially me. Made a note of that for myself. Thank you very much indeed. So Robert, your thoughts on this. Now, you asked a question, and I kind of think that you may have a view on it as well, somehow.
Yes, absolutely. So I loved Laurie and Darrel's comments. What came to my mind, the phrase "me versus we." I think it's easier to worry about one person. If you're lazy, if you shrug at collaboration, I guess you only have to worry about one person. Well, if you're collaborating, you have to worry about more than one person. So I acknowledge that is more difficult. When you are lazy about collaboration, communication might be one direction, and collaboration, of course, is 2, 3, multi-directional. So collaboration is more difficult than ignoring collaboration. And the last thought I had is about incentives. I think that many companies are highly tolerant of less than collaborative behavior. There's, I think is the word endemic or pandemic about the lack of incentives, poor incentives to minimize disruptive competition. So I think a lot of companies could do better in establishing incentives for collaboration.
Yeah, and that kind of, reward recognition type thing, so that we are recognizing good behaviors and we're exemplifying those and saying, look, this is something to be celebrated. This is the right, not just the right outcome, but actually the right process to arrive at the right outcome, is super important part. And we don't always do that. We tend to focus on reporting outcomes rather than reporting the journey towards that outcome. Let's jump over to our team online and kind of see who we've got joining us today. So Ola Olu, thanks so much for joining us today. He's joining from South Africa, which is really great to see. And Akshaya is joining us from the wonderful city of Delhi up in northeast India. So fantastic to have you online today. And jumping across the continents to the west now, we've got people moving far too quickly for me to be able to read their names. So we'll come back to you in a moment. The gentleman from Algeria, we'll come back to you momentarily. But in the meantime, in Lesotho, we have N2XE. So thank you so much. Okay, couldn't quite get there. There we go, Fares. Thank you so much indeed for joining. And good morning to you, my friend, from Algeria. Truly international audience today, and I hope that we're able to give you some ideas, some inspiration to build collaboration in your organization. So do get those questions in. I can already see some coming in for the panel, Charlotte. So let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. Our next question is from Paul in Manchester, in the UK. How important is a strong leadership team for good collaboration?
Okay, what a great question. Thank you, Paul. Darrel, start us off on this, and then we're going to hear from Laurie.
Wow. So many, it's almost PTSD, the number of times in my leadership career and history running into this particular situation where leadership gets what I call culture clash so wrong. And leadership has to really understand what they're doing when they say a culture of collaboration. It doesn't mean that there isn't conflict, that there isn't creative abrasion, that there aren't disagreements inside the organization that sometimes do need to be escalated up for a decision at the leadership level. But leaders really need to understand the different types of culture that they exist out there. And when they say the words "a culture of collaboration," it has a very definitive meaning and a very definitive way of behaving. And everyone knows that culture is the way we do things here. And so when you ask for collaboration, you're talking about diversity, involvement, harmony, human interaction, spontaneity, and certain things and behaviors of how you operate. And you cherish teamwork. But when you shift as a leader and you cherish the making of a plan, that's not creating a team. And so now you actually have asked everyone to not celebrate a team getting together to figure out how to collaborate. You've celebrated the creation of a plan with steps and checks and balances. Another example of where you can have that culture clash, collaboration versus control, is when you really count the number of misses in your organization. How often did we miss delivering? How often did we miss executing on time? How often did we miss delivering on that schedule to the plan? And so when you go and shift and report and take a meeting or take a focal point and talk about the number of misses, you're actually missing that the collaboration in that operational model is really very well geared to serving your end customer and their response and their rebuy to whatever service and product and you're offering. And so when you actually go and shift the number of misses or incompetence, we have to have the best product, forget about the customer that we're certainly delivering to. you actually get culture clash inside your organization. You get people who think they're doing the right thing, and it's actually in complete disagreement and misalignment and pulling away from collaboration. And so the first step is leaders need to understand that a culture of collaboration means a lack of focus on culture in other areas. And they need to change their behaviors and certainly understand and recognize when the organization, the people inside of it, are not adhering to the behaviors and the ways a collaboration culture are intended to. Without understanding that, you actually will have chaos inside of an organization and just manifests itself and can start to get out of control. And leaders start reacting in ways that probably aren't great for continuing to promote a collaboration culture.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that. I think some of the times that, you have, different eras in management styles, and people focused very much on key performance indicators, and, they look towards those outcomes. And then at the same time, they're asking for, a much more collaborative kind of approach. And it's not necessarily true that you will sustain a truly collaborative culture if you're setting artificially demanding timelines for everything to be done by. When you constrain the time, then that will often force out the good work of collaboration that you're seeing and witnessing on a day-to-day basis. So there's a kind of an art to it as well as a science, if that makes sense. So thank you, Darrel. So really great thinking there for us. Laurie, your thoughts, please, and then we'll move on to Robert.
No, well, for starters, I agree with all of your thoughts, Nick and Darrel. I guess one element I would add to that is that people often need a good reason to collaborate. So part of that leadership is really key in setting a vision, helping people understand what is that grand plan, what is the Holy Grail, what's going to be the benefit of this collaborative process. So as well as demonstrating it, having a vision, helping people see, well, why should I get out of my swim lane and go and talk to the HR department or the finance department or whatever it is? Because there's this grander vision, this bigger picture, and that's where leadership really comes in.
Yeah, it's that bigger picture is such an important thing, and leaders do have the position in the organisation to be able to encourage that helicopter view, don't they? And often it's a very privileged position to be in. Completely agree. Darrel, what are your thoughts on this? How important is strong leadership for good collaboration?
Nick, what comes to my mind to contrast with strong leadership? What are the penalties of weak leadership? And what came to my mind is poor accountability, a poor sense of accountability, ambiguity, lack of clarity. When you have weak leadership, you risk or almost guarantee slower speed because of the ambiguity, poor quality, because what good looks like is unclear. So the value of strong leadership, not being rigid, being rigorous is not the same as rigid. So strong leadership, rigor, confidence. One of the other panelists mentioned my term would be optimizing globally versus optimizing locally. If our healthcare line of business wants this, but our insurance line of business wants this, who is the tiebreaker? And a good, strong leadership team provides that tie-breaking capability to optimize across the enterprise and avoid siloed thinking and optimizing locally. So the value is speed to market, clarity, confidence in our work, confidence in each other, quality of the end product. So back to the original question, how important is a strong leadership team? Very, of course.
Yeah, and often there is a degree of ambiguity, isn't there, in setting out when you're innovating. You may have a vision, but you don't necessarily know how you're going to crystallize that vision into a new service or a new product and so on. So there's a period of time when you're shaping that and it's forming up and it's kind of coming together. But having that rigor, and I love that phrase, Robert, being rigorous is not the same as being rigid. You don't have to be dogmatically rigid in things in order to be able to give clarity on your leadership and to show and demonstrate clearly what it is that you're actually looking for, and to provide that feedback loop to the people who are actually figuring it out and thinking through how do we turn this vision into a realizable business product or service. So really good. So thank you very much indeed. Paul, what a great question. How do we bring in strong leadership, and is it good for collaboration, and what's the antithesis of that as well? Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Charlotte, let's move on. If we can, we'll take another question.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a lot of live questions that have come in from our audience today. The first live question is from Ashkaya Bahita. What should be the strategy to build collaboration amongst the distinct cultural units with different skill sets and mindsets?
Well, this is a wonderful question, Akshaya. So, Darrel, if we can, we'll come to you first, and then we'll hear from Robert next.
So a couple different ways that you can look at this. When you have a large enough organization, it is imperative to try to build teams that have different cultures, distinct cultures, to be able to bring that different mindset and that different way of interacting together. And coming back to that strong leadership, understanding how to build teams without disrupting non-essential skill sets, because then you have a devaluation of someone just being there for the sake of being there. So it has to be top of mind of how to be able to bring the different cultures into a team to be effective at the collaboration. And the second component, really is understanding what the type of outcome that collaboration is trying to get to have that end impact, and then diving into the different type of cultures you have inside your organization and what will work well to proceed and get there, right? And so different cultures bring different strengths and have different blind spots. And so how do you fill the blind spots that you think you need to be able to meet what you're looking for, whether it's, connected and launching a new product, or some kind, if you're in healthcare and introducing some new way of accomplishing something, being very mindful and building that together, and then setting that vision and goal. It's really important, and should take a conscious effort and a good amount of time of leaders to get it right.
Thank you so much indeed. Really, really interesting, this, isn't it? It's a really great topic for us, I think, to explore together. So thank you very much indeed. Robert, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Laurie.
To build collaboration among distinct cultural units, the first word that comes to my mind is transparency. So what does poor collaboration among these units look like? Poor collaboration is hiding information, making collaboration laborious, increasing latency so that other departments wait for information, wait for input from others. So I believe mechanisms, habits, tools, a methodology that minimizes laboriousness, minimizes latency, promotes transparency and visibility. What is that? It's documentation. Too many teams think they can talk and email their way to success. And to be empathetic with your future team, to be collaborative with your future team, they're going to appreciate thoughtful documentation, not just meeting minute after meeting minutes after meeting minutes, but thoughtful documentation that we all know, many experienced innovation professionals know what a project charter is, process flows, training materials, training approach. These are very highly visible and transparent collaboration arenas. And so, if back to the question about different skill sets, well, if this team has a skill set of design, build, test, and there are tech folks, great, they're downstream in the project. While other skill sets might be upstream. If you're a process person, you inevitably are upstream from the tech folks. So I think the over the last couple of decades, formal documentation for some organizations has fallen out of favor. When you do that, you hurt transparency, you hurt visibility. And I believe that the documentation helps improve reduce laboriousness, reduce latency, and the collaboration can happen on the page when there are disagreements. Healthcare wants this, insurance wants this, public sector wants this. Well, don't demonize or have personality conflicts. Don't demonize, disagree with what's on the paper. And instead of personality conflicts, we can have the task conflict on the paper. So again, I'm trying to refer back to the question, among these distinct cultural units, different skill sets, just know your place and know that there has to be a tiebreaker above all of us so that we can be comfortable and confident representing our constituents within our single line of business. But there's got to be an umbrella who is the tiebreaker, who optimizes across all of us.
Thank you very much indeed. Really insightful there. And I think there's a lot for our audience to unpack. I can see quite a lot of commentary in the chat, a lot of people reflecting on, what the panel are actually sharing. So thank you very much indeed. Laurie, your thoughts on this?
Yes, sure. Great question, Akshaya. I'm really just going to pull together Darrel's response and Robert's, actually, because I really enjoyed both of them. For me, there's this concept of, so if you could have a strategy of having one common element to these diverse cultural units is a growth mindset, or in other words, a learning culture. And one element of that is the idea that I'm getting these different teams comfortable with the idea that they all have blind spots. As Darrel pointed to, that really is the business case for collaboration, and understanding that the goal of collaboration is to help each other out, to cover off on each other's blind spots, and to welcome that. So one aspect, in order for teams to do that, they need to have psychological safety. So they need to be safe, learning new things, fouling a little bit, getting feedback from different teams. So that element of psychological safety being one element. And then the second element being accountability, as Robert pointed to. So if you can get a nice combination of psychological safety where it's safe for teams to collaborate, learn from each other, get things wrong every now and then, as well as clear accountability so that performance is being measured, that there is this goal of overall performance, you're going to go a long way to having a very collaborative culture.
Yeah, absolutely right. That kind of safety and that sense of respect is very, very important. One thing to consider in this, Akshaya, also is to help colleagues understand the differences and the diversity that is within your organization. So if you have, different business cultures, different ways of working around the world, then, help others understand what those are. And they may be small rituals that are part of kind of daily life in one part of the world, and they're absent from another, or there may be a different manifestation, maybe a different way or ritual of starting meetings in one part of the world to another, and so on. So do spend some time, if you can, sharing those with each other so that people can have a better understanding, and having a real focus on inclusivity to make sure that those quiet voices are actually heard as well. And where you have a business culture which tends to be more deferential to senior leaders than in one part of the world, that might be not quite the same, a little bit more openly challenging in another part of the world, help everybody understand that those differences do exist, and it's the way in which, kind of people work. So really great question. Thank you very much indeed, Akshaya, for submitting it. Darrel, you wanted to come back in.
Yeah, I couldn't help but just want to continue, relaying the importance of psychological safety, right? And so one thing that you can take away or maybe add to how you create that right culture of collaboration is to practice that. Like, practice setting up that safe environment. sharing something that isn't business critical or the decision making at hand? How do you share and get a little bit vulnerable about your culture, the place where you've been, and the construct of that team is just to, tease a little bit at some vulnerability, and then everyone gets a little level deeper in their emotional attachment and their commitment to the team. And so practicing that allows people to, when we get to a business conflict, it's not personal. Or how do we make sure we stay away from personal issues? And then you go back to practicing it. So that's a really good way to introduce and keep that very important component. Transparency, certainly, but how do you maintain that psychological safety so everyone feels that they have the opportunity to share, whether they fully have fleshed out that idea or not? It's really critical to allow everyone that time and space.
So important, isn't it? Absolutely critical. Thank you very much indeed. We really appreciate that. Thank you, Darrel. Let's just pop over and welcome some other folks. Dr. Sharif, thank you so much again for joining us, regular viewer to Level Up. So thank you for being online today. And also the team from Suffolk. The team from Suffolk. By the way, if you're appearing as a LinkedIn user, that just means your profile setting in LinkedIn, your image is set to private, which is perfectly okay. We're very respectful of that. So thank you very much for joining. And it does show you how to manage your own public profile, if you like, on different social platforms, which is something that people are very keen on to do. Marlene, welcome back, a regular panelist, of course. She's joining from Melbourne in Australia. So thank you, Marlene, for being online today. I can see you in the chat as well. So great to have you here. And Paul joined us from Portugal. So really beautiful country down in Southern Europe, of course. So welcome to Level Up today, Paul. Really great to have you online. All right, let's move on. If you have questions, now is the time to put them into the panel, please, because we'll run out of time. We always run out of time on Level Up. So do get your questions in early so that we can get to them. Charlotte, let's move on. We'll take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a live question from April E, who's watching on LinkedIn. April asks, when collaborating with other businesses, what would you say the main benefits or risks of this?
All right, so collaborating with other businesses, benefits, risks, and so on. Robert, why don't you start us off, please, and then we'll hear from Laurie.
First thing that came to my mind about the benefits is reduced labor, reduced work. Multiple players in a single industry, for example, can divide and conquer for something like a regulatory or compliance effort. I think of, bear with me one moment, demonstrating to the other players in the market that you are being a good citizen, that you are being customer-centric, that you are able to collaborate outside and not be so self-centric, or, worst case, demonstrate that you are not being predatory in your industry. The risks that I think of intellectual property, escaping the organization. All organizations have a combination of competitive advantages, collaborative advantages, how they work together. And when you expose that to the outside, of course, it's human nature to say, what they're doing over there, I'd like to adopt that. So the risk, of course, is that your unique, a company's secret sauce can escape to your competitors.
I suppose that's true. And I think that it comes down then to how you differentiate yourself, what your secret sauce is. If it's functionality, then you may very quickly be overtaken, by others. If it's how you do something, then that can often be more difficult or tricky to emulate, just by definition. So you're absolutely right. Thank you so much indeed. Laurie, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Darrel.
Well, certainly one of the benefits is, the opportunity to do bigger projects and bigger initiatives. So if you've got complementary skill sets, or if you complement each other's blind spots, if you will, and it might mean that suddenly there's a whole range of opportunities and projects that you may be able to participate in that either one of the two businesses may not have been able to alone. So if there's complementary skills, I think would be one of the key sort of decision criteria. And of course, naturally, one of the risks might be, any sort of values mismatch, or if there's a difference in ways of working or ethical practices that might lead to, IP issues, as Robert alluded to. So yeah, just checking in that the sort of value set or the baseline culture is reasonably similar, but the skill set's different and complementary.
Yeah, completely true. Thank you very much indeed. And Darrel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a whole lot more to add around this than what Robert and Laurie brought up. So I'll just focus in on learning how to collaborate differently, right? So every organization has their own leadership and their own way of doing things, and being exposed to other businesses and integrating in with that collaborative component, you'll start to hopefully pick the best and bring them in and shape and mold how you do things internally for yourselves. So getting rid of that silo, like we hear so often, siloed people or siloed teams. Well, if you're a siloed business, right, and you only think one particular way, and the whole idea is to bring in new people and ingrain them and train them up in the way we do things here at our organization, well, you could very well be leaving out the benefits of collaborating with other businesses around you and improving yourself through that relationship and that understanding.
Yeah, it's and how to go about that in safe environments and get that working up and down your organization. I would really encourage people, even if your business is quite small, to support membership organizations. Okay, get people collaborating with their peers so that they're learning tools and techniques, methods and approaches, ways of going about things which are cross industry. We tend to think about collaboration in a vertical industry context, and don't get me wrong, I think that that's very important, particularly when you're dealing with highly regulated environments. But also the way in which Just Eat went about transforming how people order food from restaurants is quite transformational. And that concept has equal value, actually, in many different industries, those ideas. So it's worthwhile encouraging your colleagues within your organization to join membership bodies. One that I would recommend thoroughly is, of course, the Business Relationship Management Institute, because it brings people together who are building meaningful relationships and gives them a fantastic not just a body of knowledge to be able to dip into, but actually local meetings for people to exchange their ideas and find out more about how you go about, building those sorts of cultures. So very much a worthwhile thing to do. Doesn't have to be them, of course, can be other membership bodies as well, but it's a great place to start. So do have a little look at the BRM Institute to find out more. Thank you very much indeed, panel. And Charlotte, I can see the questions stacking up, so I think we should move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. The next question is from Paul, who you introduced a short time ago from Portugal, watching live on LinkedIn. Are we clear enough about the concept of collaboration? Could we really exist as a species without collaboration?
It's a really good point. We've done rather well so far, haven't we? Although occasionally we kind of fall out with each other and then go and shoot each other and this kind of stuff. Robert, are we more lovers than fighters? Would you say is the human race? And are we clear about the concept? We'll start with you, and then we'll go to Darrel.
I love the reference of that 80s song, the duet, Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney. Paul, I told you, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I love that reference. So I'm keying on Paul's usage of the word species. And I had this image of, this cave person, thousands of years ago on a deserted island living alone. So could we really exist as a society without collaboration? The two words that come to my mind are service and empathy. So my short, curt answer is no, because to have collaboration, to have a society, to have businesses, you have to care about something. You have to care about someone. Customer service, serving your colleagues, serving your customers. It boils down to, who do you care about? Who is around you that you care about, that you want to improve their journey, improve their situation, or the opposite, to paint a very bleak picture. Everything else is just solitude. You can't leverage anyone else's background, expertise, passion, their own empathy. So, of course, the short answer, I think, is no, or it would just be a very bleak existence. Collaboration improves quality of life inside a company, outside a company.
Thank you very much indeed. Darrel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly nothing you can say against. We would not be at this point of civilization without components of collaboration along the way. But the question around, are we clear about the concept of collaboration in business? That is very different, especially in the world, the hybrid world that we've entered recently since COVID, where people are so insular and are able to be siloed so much that we've lost a little bit of that human touch, and that the ability to read the room and be empathetic in person. And so we do need to reorient ourselves of what collaboration means in this hybrid, in this remote world, and being able to work, at any day, at any time of the day. But there is science in the art of the art and science of collaboration and culture. And so really understanding the behaviors that you want and need that are lined up with collaboration, and then which behaviors that you need to nip in the bud because they are complete polar opposites, and then which ones that you allow the people inside your organization to learn through. Oh, that didn't work. That wasn't quite collaborative, right? So, we as a human species also learn from our mistakes. And so the concept of collaboration in business is just like relationship management, is understanding how to strengthen it and understanding when there's impact negatively on the strength of the collaboration and the relationships inside your organization. And so, sure, right? So often collaboration, like we're all collaborative. Well, we live in a world now where we can choose not to talk to neighbors any longer. Right? Like, we're in a safe world that we don't have to worry about the neighbor coming over and harming us. Or maybe we do live in a world where we do live in that threat. And so now you do have circles of collaboration. So, diving deeper in business collaboration, what does that look like? And then collaboration within just us as a species. It's definitive, and it has a meaning in both senses.
Thank you very much indeed. Laurie?
Yeah, great question, Paul. When I think of this question, I think of the saying, I think it was a Richard Branson saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, let's go together. And if we're going to survive as a species, then clearly we're going to have to go together, and there's going to need to be a lot of collaboration. And even, I think, a lot of the climate change challenge that we're starting to see play out now, it's going to cause something of an industrial revolution. And as human beings, it's going to be a great test for us that, at corporate level, within business, as well as government level and throughout society, the better we can be at collaborating, sharing information, innovating, coming up with novel solutions, the more likely it is that we will continue to exist as a species.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the, what's clear throughout history in our species is that when societies become fragmented and polarized, then generally bad things happen. So it is a good thing to constantly watch and to see how we can build understanding how we can build collaboration, how we can build genuine alignment in people. We don't always need to agree with each other all the time, but we do need to provide that, safe space for people to be able to make their contributions and, reflect on, the value of that contribution throughout. So excellent comments. Thank you very much indeed, panel. Now we've got about 15 minutes to run, so we're going to pick up the pace. Charlotte, if we may, let's move on and we'll take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. Our next live question is from a LinkedIn viewer, Aloha. How can lack of collaboration be mitigated for effective change management?
It's really part of managing the change, isn't it, that we look out for these things? What are our top ways, Robert, of helping to mitigate those risks?
What came to my mind with this question, my mind immediately goes to the ADKAR framework. If a lack of collaboration is a symptom of a team, and I'm going to try to leverage my change management background, I'm going to interpret the ADKAR framework extremely literally. What do I have to put on paper to execute that first A of ADKAR? What do I have to put on paper to execute the D of ADKAR, which is desire? What do I need to put on paper to execute the K of ADKAR, knowledge, etc.? So I'm interpreting the question very literally, a very strict interpretation of change management, assuming that there are surrounding dysfunctions or weaknesses of a team. So my short answer would be lean really heavily and literally into the ADKAR framework.
Thank you very much indeed. Some great guidance there for us. Laurie, your thoughts, how can we mitigate that risk?
Firstly, I agree completely with Robert that using strong existing frameworks for change management is a good place to start. Another element I would add to that is to engage with those. So if there is an issue with a lack of collaboration, to engage with those people to understand what their perceptions are, what is their fear, what is it that's holding them back. And by understanding that, it can help you develop a strategy to make it more attractive to them to start engaging and collaborating.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Time's not on our side, so we're going to move on. Thank you very much, Ola Olu, for asking that question. Really great question, by the way. Let's move on, Charlotte. We'll take our next question to the panel.
Thanks, Nick. Next live question from Mohammed Nassim. What are the best approaches and tools for collaboration between partner organizations to implement the project successfully?
Well, Mohammed, I would start with open comms, okay, and really communicate properly throughout your project lifecycle. Darrel, what other top tips would you offer, Mohammed?
We touched on it earlier. I think it was Laurie who was talking about project charters, and then Robert, you mentioned documentation and get people on the same page. And so, partner organizations, project kickoffs, how the project is aligned to strategy, and then make sure that those partner organizations, that everyone understands what their value, their desired results are, right? Like get everyone understanding what their true North Star is and how they're about to make decisions. And that creates that empathetic ability to, okay, they're going to make a decision this way. And so start there. Start with a clear vision, get everyone on the same page and what is most important to them. And then you can begin taking the steps forward to and having that chance to work towards that successful outcome you're looking for.
Yeah, great advice there. Thank you so much. Laurie, your thoughts?
Yes, very similar. So any sort of project kickoff where you can bring both groups in together for some sort of a workshop, and starting the workshop in a lighthearted way. So making sure that there's some form of icebreaker or some sort of, before the real work starts, some way to create an informal environment where people can drop their guard, some sort of game or something like that to get people feel more comfortable. and then starting to work together, making sure there's good value alignment, clear goals, etc.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And when you get into it as well, post kickoff, don't forget, folks, that working with partners is across the project lifecycle, because the project team members are going to have to internally sell what they're doing to their colleagues who are not necessarily directly involved in the collaboration project that you are undertaking. So, Mohammed, good luck with that. Complexity there is, yes, for sure. Challenges there are, but at the same time, huge benefits as well when you get it right. And those moments that make you smile will come throughout that project lifecycle. So, really good question. Thank you so much indeed. Charlotte, let's move on. I think we might have time for one or two final questions.
Thanks, Nick. Next question is from Robert Robert Denbroder, a LinkedIn viewer who we know quite well. He asks, one of the major challenges is accurately defining behaviours you want to see more of. What would be a usable examples of collaborative behaviours?
What a great question, Robert. Some usable examples, and let's try and keep this pretty tight, panel. Robert, why don't you start us off, and then we'll hear from Laurie.
I recommend a framework that I see as an improvement upon the traditional RACI framework. Most of us are probably familiar with the RACI framework. The framework I encourage for defining the behavior, I call the 5 verbs. The 5 verbs are draft, review, revise, approve, distribute. This promotes transparency, visibility, and it is incredibly unambiguous about the behaviors you need to see from your team members.
Thank you very much indeed. Laurie, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Darrel.
So in terms of a usable example of collaborative behaviours, so within a project environment, I've seen really useful change management practices where there's within the group. So for every change proposal that's being considered, there has to be representation, for example, from the different life cycles of the project, from the original business case through design, development, commissioning, operations and maintenance. There also has to be representation from health and safety, from environmental people. So by having this diverse criteria for inclusion, just encourages that collaboration. It may mean that for some of the changes that come through, there may not be a lot of interest from one of the stakeholders, but at least it gives that opportunity for collaboration, so that if people do have the opportunity to contribute, it's going to be welcome. It's going to be more collaborative.
Thank you very much indeed. And Darrel, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's taking a look at the things that the leadership and the team act on in a week by week, day by day basis. And so what I mean by that is, and I touched on it earlier, what do you celebrate as a team or as a leadership group? You get through a meeting, and so often we hear, all right, we have a plan. Good job, everyone. And that's not celebrating collaborative culture. You want to celebrate the team. And so, team, good work. Can see that you're set up to continue driving forward for the rest of the week. And so what I hope you hear is that words matter around what you choose to celebrate. Same thing. Ask who in a collaborative culture. Not how, not what, not why. Collaboration is who is going to do this. Same thing, recruiting for. Who are you bringing into your organization? Trustworthiness is that collaborative characteristic, not competitiveness, not brilliance, not loyal, trustworthiness within the team. And so a few other behavior types, affiliation, prioritizing on the people, leading by process. Those are a few of those characteristics and behaviors that you're looking for, and you can start identifying. The other ones comes back to that culture clash that I talked about at the beginning. Pick these, use words that match to it, end meetings, start meetings. on these types of characters and behaviors you're looking for, and everyone will start to shift more and more toward that culture of collaboration that we're talking about.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. What a great question from Robert to kind of wrap us up on the question section of the show. So thank you very much indeed, everybody who's been so active online today in the audience. Really great contributions throughout from all of our producers online. So let's hear our closing remarks and reflections on today's show from the panel. Robert, if we may, we'll come to you first, and then we'll hear from Darrel.
Thanks, Nick. Experts in everything in our society somehow make it look easy. When we think of a culture of collaboration, let's think about who makes collaboration look easy. I look to the performing arts. I think of a symphony. I think of a dance couple. I think of a theater company. I think of an improvisation team. So I believe there is a ton of value in emulating, studying the performing arts. What do they do that we could imitate to improve project success rates, the employee experience, and profits? So I believe there's a gold mine of opportunity to improve collaboration when you peel back the curtain, unintended, of the performing arts.
Thank you very much indeed. What a great way of getting us to think about it and to use that metaphor of the performing arts. Excellent idea. Thank you so much. Darrel, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Laurie.
Yeah, you bet. Today's session was really talking about collaboration, which is a relationship between people, two individuals, or certainly within a team. And the BRM Institute, really the foundational core element is all about building strong relationships, managing from the start to finish of an idea through to value, of being able to create the construct of how to build a great relationship. And when great relationships exist inside of an organization, it is much easier for collaboration to spark and evolve and become something meaningful. So encourage everyone to come join us at the BRM Institute, be part of the community, and build that foundation in relationships where collaboration is just a natural evolution.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you very much. Thoroughly recommend that event. And we'll get a link in that over into the social chat for everybody so that they can have a look at the event itself and see if it's something that they can attend. Laurie, your reflections on today, please.
Oh, great session. Yeah, thank you very much, Nick. Thank you, Darrel. Thank you, Robert. I think I'll follow Robert's lead, actually, and even looking at the sporting arena. So looking at the Rugby World Cup that's going on at the moment, you look at when humans are having fun, when teams are aligned on a goal, it's something they do, they collaborate. And you can have a diverse team of different individuals, the forwards, the big strong guys, the fast wingers, the creative fly halves. And they can all work together and create something valuable through collaboration. And there's so much opportunity for us to get better at doing that in the project world.
Absolutely. Rugby's actually quite a good metaphor as well, isn't it? Because it's the only game that I know that echoes business. Sometimes you need to go backwards in order to make progress. That's certainly true, isn't it? I think we've all witnessed that from time to time. 3 steps forward and a different number backwards actually can lead you to a better outcome, ultimately. Charlotte, your reflections on today.
A fantastic show. Lots of information shared. Thank you to our viewers for submitting such fabulous questions. We can't run the show without you. Thank you to Robert and Darrel for getting up in the middle of the night. And Laurie, it's bedtime. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, quite. So I'd echo that. Thank you to all of our producers online for your excellent questions today. It's been lovely following along in the social chat. I've been watching all of the communication between you all and the sharing of ideas and the questions that you've been raising and so on. So thank you very much for doing that. So now then, over on our website, of course, you can, of course, now search for more than 2,000 answers to previously submitted questions to Level Up and across all of the other events that we run at APMG International. It's a brilliant resource, and it does connect you with experts from all over the world and from every industry. Now, don't forget that you may also listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. So do hop over there and search for APMG International, Level Up Your Career. Coming up later on this week, Friday the 22nd, is a German language episode. It's all about how do you create authentic leadership. And as the event is in the German language, please do share in advance with your German-speaking colleagues. I'm sure that they would really love it. So jump in and enjoy that one. I'm going to be back with you again next Monday on the 25th for a session to talk about building your project management career. All right, ask us, and we will, of course, send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much indeed, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time.